Welcome to my trap, Mr. Bond. Yes, I know. Right in front of me, it looks like that I'm about ready to torture a guy with a Fanuc robot. But again, I was trying to find something that I could utilize for talking about the current thing that we have, which is arc commands, circular arc commands in Fanuc, and I couldn't find anything. This is the best I could find. I didn't want to create something in CAD because I don't have CAD on this computer. So I went with this. So let's just pretend he's Han Solo that we're cutting out of carbonite. So with our new laser engraving robot. Not a real person, fake person, but I'm sure some of you would automatically think that that's Bondville. That's James Bond and I'm Blowfield. But no, he's Han Solo in carbonite. And we're cutting him out with our robot. And to do that, instead of using joint commands and linear commands, that would be typical because we might cut some things off. Also, we might also have issues with circle commands because there's some cases here where a circular arc could work, but it might be easier to do using like the normal circle command. Because remember, before, if you teach a circle command, and let me put my little draw feature on. Usually you have to teach a point here, and then it gives me a full circle, and you got to teach a point in the middle, and then it'll give you a clear circle, or joint arc motion. That could work, but some of this stuff, this is like more, and maybe a little bit more difficult to get it to work in the direction that we want. It's because it may not change its like location or complexity. So like say if we got a sine wave type of thing that looks like this, you might need to stack points. You just make life a lot harder on ourselves. But if we use a circular arc command, which is the A command, which you can see right here on the teach pendant, this will take into account all the inflections and the changes in the circularity, the inflection points. That's the word I'm looking for. So that's how we're going to do that. But how you're going to need to think about that is think of this here as an arc. Think about this as an arc. And then you can think about this as an arc, this as an arc here. And this will give you some idea of what we're looking at. We're going to actually trace all that as we do our job. So if I hold down, if I go in there and run this thing, you'll see that this is going to run closely along that while keeping that into account. So, but when we're programming it, things to think about, and let me put this in black, so is, because what the computer will do is say, here's our parabola. And in theory, this is a parabola too. There's a starting point here and there's an end point here, but and at the apex, there's another point, and it can calculate that parabola based upon this point, and this point right here. But also, I could bifurcate this into another parabola in the middle. So it could calculate this motion here by taking this end point, this middle point, and this middle point, and creating the arc. But then again, let me give you another one. So here's one arc. Here's another arc. And here's a third arc, all in that one arc, that by putting in multiple 3 points and thinking about when we build this job, think about these as sets of 3 points. This can help us build and create a seamless freeform arc. And this is where would you do this? Maybe in welding, maybe in paint if you got something that's not circular but kind of funky. I use them a lot in my projects with students because then they can actually draw something out freeform. So, but that's how you need to think about that. So if I'm drawing along here, I can have a point here that I start with, a point here that I start with, and a point here that I start with, and that'll form that whole arc. Same with this here. And you might need to do more points the better. So a point here and a point here, and that will form an arc. as well, and that point as well. But where things get complicated is when you're sometimes going around these sharper corners, especially if you have I know Moto Man is really tricky like this, and this is how I was taught this, so I might be importing this into Fanuc, but I do think this is a helpful way of looking at arc commands, is that the more points you have, the better, because that'll line up more with the contour that you need. It may be a little bit annoying, but this is my recommendation. So by teaching those points, because remember, a straight line can be just a bunch of, so if this is a straight line, it can be considered just a bunch of flat parabolas too. Or very, 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 very open parabolas. If it's because no line is truly straight if we're drawing a freehand. So that's how we will build this job. Turn that off. And if I run this job, so shift forward, let me turn on off step, and let me slow this down a little bit so you can see. I'm going in, and its first motion is a linear command in that arc, and you can see it will adjust along the arcs that I create. And I could have got better, but I was in a hurry. And if you try, if I just step through it, you can see where all my points are. So if I go, I'm going to step through this. Whoops. And you can see, and let me view, let's just do position triads. That's it. You can see where I taught points. And by the way, and some of these points are up and ahead. You can see I stacked some points around this corner to make sure it worked well. The Z's off a little bit, but you can see how I start stacking the points. And I would always think about these in groups of 3. I know in some applications, because this went like this, and you might need to stack another point or 2. But again, notice how when I run this job, what it looks like. It goes to the points, and now these are just, I'm forwarding through, and you see it kind of cut that off, so I could probably need another point in there. That one's not too bad, but it did round that corner pretty well. And we can go around that edge right there into the middle of the hand. And I could touch these up a little bit, but I was just doing this for demonstration purposes. And so in theory, I should probably have put in some extra points here to make sure it fits that form that I want. But let's actually see this in auto. Let me turn off the teach pendant, clear everything, and let me turn off step and put this in play mode. And let's see if it's tracing. See, some of it could be better. But actually not, but you can see that it went straight through the guy's arm because I didn't do a good job of teaching it originally. And you can see how that went because I was too high up. That I could have done a better job of if I put another point in there and put another point in there and maybe another point here, it would do a better job, but of defining the arcs between the 2 points. As you can see, see here, it went right in. So the better you define the points, you can do things. But this is kind of how the circular arc commands work. You can play with this and see your motion types, but in this case, I would have killed Han Solo because I would have sliced off a part of his arm. That's why, and it is a challenging thing because it can be annoying because you can't get things. So let me just try to put a point in. And say I want to put a point there. So again, if you need to get the arc motion, you got to change your definitions. So I put a point in there. And now let's run it and see if this is any better. So carving that out, moving out. There's that point, and I bypass the shoulder a little bit more, it looks like. But again, the more points, the better. I just wanted to demonstrate how this works, and this is really good, clear in action. So let me just start this over, run it again. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, that's a lot better. See, I didn't cut off his arm that time as much. But you can see if I went way in there. This is easier. This is easier. And I should probably have taught another point. So let's see, I should probably teach it. So anyway, that's what you'll need to do. And so if I want to try to touch this point up, I would turn this on. I would change this to joint and then move it to that position. Because if not, it might be too big. Yeah, and let me see if I can't correct that point. Let me do shift touch up. And I'm going to change that to an A. Circular arc. Okay. One last time, I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it in auto. Just so we can see the actual motions. Gotta fix that. I don't know what. So anyway, you get the idea. That's how you do an arc, and it allows you to do a lot more freeform than like a circle. Because again, a circle will just do a clear loop, loop. So, and you can play with a circle. I just find this a little bit easier when you're in the real world. I hope this was helpful, and have a good day.